Hi everyone, this is Norbert from ZkCloud. I'm going to be talking about an analysis of proving every Ethereum block that we've been doing since the 1st of April approximately. So basically, sorry, this is the one, yeah. Quick thing about ZkCloud, we are the first universal proving infrastructure for ZK, launched the first version of the network in March 2024. We are supporting any prover built using any proof system, and on the network you can use the pre-deployed prover programs that we have. We've got quite a few, or you can also deploy your own prover container, which means that universality in this sense is not only supporting any proof system, but also allowing you to bring your own container and use our underlying infra to generate proofs. So with this universality, actually, we have the flexibility to swap between ZK VMs as performance evolve, and to go with the evolution of ZK VMs to prove Ethereum and to prove other stuff as well. Just in a nutshell, we're looking to be competitive in terms of performance with centralized options in a decentralized setup, which ensures censorship resistance, liveness, and trustlessness. And we also look to drastically decrease the cost of proving. And I think I'll hint at that in one of the slides as well. So a quick thing about our participation in Ethproofs. We started off late March 2025. And the reason for us joining is because we are committed to supporting the snarking journey of Ethereum. And what we are currently doing is that we are posting every 100th proof to the production interface as the usual standard. And then on top of that, we decided to prove every Ethereum block consecutively. And we are posting all the proofs to the staging interface, which is publicly available also for anyone to take a look. Now, why is proving all Ethereum blocks important, or why did we start this latter thing? Honestly, ZK, like blockchain scale ZK proving and proving all Ethereum, Ethereum's execution has been viewed prohibitively expensive. And we want to prove the opposite, honestly. ZK is affordable. The ZK endgame is here today, and we wanted to demonstrate the economic feasibility of snarking the EVM even at this point. So what we are currently doing is we started off with single GPU proving, then we are heavily exploring multi-GPU, and then going toward real-time proving. Currently, a little bit about our cluster and like how we are progressing or how we've been doing things in the past 2 months. As I mentioned, on the 1st of April, approximately, we started proving every Ethereum block consecutively. We use a cluster of 24 GPUs, 4090s, and we throw a single GPU on every block. We currently use SP1 as the ZK VM and RSP as the Ethereum block prover. Actually, it's a modified version of RSP, but we are also actively exploring other ZK VMs like RiskZero's ZK VM and also Zisk that the guys have been talking about. Both of them have the multi-GPU accelerator, the orchestrator, open source, so that's very important for us. I just checked it this morning. We generated over 500K proofs in the past 2.5 months. For Ethereum, it's about 220K proofs a month or so. The average proving time with single GPU, it's slightly over 3 minutes. And the average proving cost, this is not what you see on the Ethproofs website. That's a different calculation logic, but our actual proving cost is around 2 cents per block, not per transaction, it's per block. And if you calculate this and you multiply number of blocks per month and then per year, it actually comes to the tens of thousands and not hundreds of thousands, which is quite interesting, I think. So a little bit more about proving with RSP. So there are 2 main parts in the process. There's a pre-proving phase. Often it may actually even exceed the proving phase, and then comes the actual proving. You have the link to our repo there, our fork of RSP. And regarding the pre-proving phase, it's important to mention it basically includes mostly fetching input data through RPC to reconstruct the block. This is quite a heavy task because on average, every block needs about 4,000 to 5,000 RPC calls, which is super slow. It's more than 1 billion calls per month. And you see on the screenshot the distribution of these calls or these methods to reconstruct the block. And this is one of the biggest blockers. Now I'll talk about some improvements we are looking to do there as well. Regarding the pre-proving phase and like the resource requirements in general. So the pre-proving phase has a utilization of approximately 1 to 2 virtual CPUs and like 4 gigs of RAM, very small. But for the proving phase using single GPU and RSP with SP1, we've observed an average of 22 virtual cores being used, maximum going up to 42 for a very short time. And then RAM being used on average approximately 39 gigs with maximum going up to 65 gigs for a very short period. As I mentioned, we are using 1 GPU, 1 4090 per block when we are generating the proofs. So we just need to have enough GPUs to keep up with the chain constantly and have one free every 12 seconds. And for GPU memory, we've observed a maximum of 16 gigs of memory usage with SP1 and RSP. Now, we've made a few custom modifications back in March when we started working with RSP and the version that was available back then. There was a small, simple thing we had to create at the beginning, creating multiple hooks for the Ethproofs interface. The succinct team already built a hook for Ethproofs into RSP, but we had to add another one to ensure we can post every 100th proof to production and then every other proof, including the 100th to the staging interface. But then there is another interesting thing that we had to deal with is decoupling the pre-proving from the proving phase. And what this means is the executor in the prover trait was built in a way that it's coupled with the CPU or GPU prover, whichever you are using, in our case, the GPU prover. So it means that the GPU is basically logged in already during the preparation phase that does not actually require the GPU. So this means there's a bunch of idle GPU time and lower GPU utilization by default. So we had to decouple these two phases, which resulted in us being able to prepare certain blocks for proving parallel to proving other blocks on GPUs and thus increasing the GPU utilization a whole lot. I mean, this is important for a single GPU setup. And this way we were able to bring it down to, actually we started off from like 70, 80 GPUs being thrown at it. But after we've done this, we were able to go down to like 20, 25 to keep up with the chain. Few other modifications or like kind of small improvements that we've done. So the proving flow is set up, execute, and prove in SP1. The thing is, setup is called repeatedly, but we can skip that because we found that basically the setup call is responsible for generating prover and verifier key, and it does not modify any internal prover state. So we found that it's possible to generate the prover key once for a given client binary and then reuse it for the next block when we are proving it. And through this, we are able to save a few seconds. And then you can also skip calling execute because in this proving flow, the execute call is actually only generating you the cycle count. It's basically generating a report with the number of opcodes and syscalls, et cetera, that's included in the proving. And you can actually spare that to get the cycle count. The funny thing is, I don't know if it's a coincidence or the succinct team is watching forks actively, but the day we implemented it, the following day actually succinct pulled it in as well for their version, so that the proof call also includes by default the cycle count, and you don't need to run an additional call to get that. And then some challenges that we've been facing. Occasionally, the CUDA prover was crashing, and we found that it's like upon base field division by 0, the Moongate server became deadlocked and the prover crashed. We reported the issue to the team. That's the link there to the issue, and the team, like, we produced steps for reproducing the issue. The team was very fast and efficient at proving it, so at fixing it. So it's been done, and in the new versions, it's not there. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm not mistaken, it's not there anymore. And then we had a bunch of challenges with RPC for the preparation phase. We tested different providers. We tested our own, running our own node as well. So you see, for block execution and fetching storage proofs, GCP's 2 minutes for the first and 1 minute for the second one, versus like 6 to 10 minutes for the same tasks from different RPC providers. So there is a huge, basically, variety in performance there. So we opted for GCP and then running our own nodes. But regarding input fetching, like, this connects back to the topic that I mentioned earlier, where you need approximately 1 billion calls a month by default to reconstruct the blocks. Now, for improving input fetching, we are also testing a custom method called debug execution witness, which could get all the input data in a single RPC call. But this needs some change to the RPC logic to build the Merkle-Patricia tree from the execution witness. So it's still in the works. That's basically about customizations and our challenges. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about an analysis. So basically here you see a random number of blocks that I've chosen. All of them are from a close range, and all of them have similar gas usage, approximately 11 million gas plus minus a little bit. And as you can see in the third column, most of them translate to approximately 200 million RISC-V cycles with RSP, SP1. So basically, but the interesting thing is that even in a general, like, everyday block building flow, when the intention is not to build heavy blocks like Will mentioned for the prover killers, but just building regular blocks, there are significant outliers there. So if you check the third block from the top, instead of the average 200 million cycles, it includes 320 almost. And if you check the bottommost one, it has 280. So the proving times for those are pretty significantly higher. And because of that, like, this is something to consider for real-time proving as well. These types of outliers in terms of prover complexity occur in simple everyday block building flows as well.
What do you attribute the discrepancy to?
I'll come to that. Yeah, it's not like, yeah, I took details from Connor Proof Lab, actually. So we'll see. But here is a bit of correlation between gas usage and how it translates to RISC-V cycles. So if you see all these blocks around 11 million gas, they translate mostly to approximately 200 million RISC-V cycles. But you can see the outliers I mentioned. One of them is around 260, then the other one is almost 320 million. And then the rightmost one is 280 approximately. So there is actually a moderate negative correlation there. There is even, oops. Sorry. Yeah, okay. So the divergence from the mean, basically, the gas usage varies by approximately 16% among these blocks that I've picked. But the proving time varies by 80%, which is huge. And if you see the cycle count versus the proving time, there is a very strong positive correlation there. Obviously, the more cycles, the longer the proving time is going to be. But the gas usage versus proving time is, and like how gas translates to RISC-V cycles, is a very, very key thing. Now, there is an extreme example which I took from Connor's repo. I'll mention it in the next slide. So if you check this block from Ethereum, which has approximately 24.8 million gas. I took a few other sample blocks in the plotted chart, which are roughly around 22 million. And if you see, most of them translate to approximately 450 million RISC-V cycles, except for that one on the very right side, which is this extreme block. It translates to over 1 billion cycles, and the proving time is over 11 minutes versus the regular 3-4 minutes that should be for blocks approximately this with this gas usage. And now here is I'm sure many of you are aware of this, but this is some information I took from zCarnage, Connor's library, Connor's repo on GitHub. So there is a huge asymmetry between gas usage and proving complexity for many EVM operations. In many cases, it can be actually over 1000x. So some precompiled operations like modXP or BN pairing, you see 200 gas translates to 215,000 RISC-V cycles, or 45,000 gas for BN pairing translates to almost 2 million RISC-V cycles. So there is an overhead of over 1000x and like almost 40x respectively for these two. These are just some examples I took. And also the jump test operation, it only takes one gas, but it also has like a 1000x overhead when it comes to the circuit logic and the proving complexity. So I just wanted to mention it because it's something to be aware of. And from this perspective, I think it's even more important to consider that when a team is able to prove, like, no, let me approach it from a different angle. Coming to 99, being able to prove 99% of the blocks real time may be actually a little bit more challenging than we think because of these outliers, even if there is no on-purpose attack related to this, because this could actually be a potential attack vector. And I think that's what the prover killers are hinting at. So what if validators started building blocks on purpose that are super huge and very heavy to prove, and thus try delay the finality of Ethereum in the future? That's a very valid attack vector to consider. So last slide, basically what's next for us. We are heavily exploring multi-GPU proving with RISC-0 ZkVM, but we also started looking into RSP's sub-block prover, which is kind of like a similar logic that's implemented currently with the Hypercube that they are using. The key difference is how, so like at what point of the process they are breaking the execution trace or the proving job into segments or shards, in RSP's case, sub-blocks, prior to running it in the ZkVM or after having generated the trace and running it in the ZkVM. And then we are going to be moving to real-time proving as soon as open source implementations are available, both for ZkVMs that are capable of that performance as well as multi-GPU orchestrators. So that's why we are actually looking into R0 VM and ZISC as well, because they have the multi-GPU orchestrators open source as well. That's it from my side. I think I'm a little bit over time, so I'm happy to take any questions after this, but thank you very much for listening to the talk.